In this lesson, we're going to add some data to our table, which is currently blank and pretty uninteresting. So in order to do that, I need a way to generate some information. In most cases, when dealing with table views, you're using an array of data. So we're going to create an array of dates for our journal. And we can use the old C-style arrays for X in range 1 to 1,000, append the information to a pre-built array. But as we've seen before, the map function is probably the easiest way and the most efficient way to do that. So at the top of my journal table view controller class, I'm going to create some sample data. So I'm going to say let sample data equal, and then I'm going to use 0 and then 2 dots to less than 1,000. Right? So that's almost like the in range. So it's going to go from 0 to as long as it's less than 1,000. And then I'm going to use the map function. And as part of the closure, cell, and then parentheses, $, 0, quotes. Let's go ahead and review what this means. Remember that the end result of the map function is an array. Well, what's going to be in that array? Well, every entry is going to be the string cell, and then whichever, this is a placeholder, this $, and then 0 is a placeholder for each of these values. So the first entry will be cell 0, cell 1, cell 2, and so on and so on and so on. So at the end of this, I'm going to have an array of 1,000 values from 0 to 999, each of them saying cell something, some number. So how do I get that data to show up in my table? Well, first of all, in my table view number of rows and section, now that I have some data, I can tell exactly how many rows I'm going to have. And the number of rows, instead of returning 0, I'm going to return the number of values in sample data, which is just sample data dot count. And that'll give me the exact number of rows in my table view, which is perfect. And now, in order to actually show that, I have to configure the cell. Actually, I can take out my to-do now. Just take this line out. Let's go ahead and configure that cell. So let's take this out. I'm going to do some optional binding. If let label, again, label is just my variable, equal cell dot text label. And you can see text label is a generic or a pre-built property of a cell, and it's the text of a particular cell. I'm going to say the label dot text, so the text of that cell equals sample data. And again, it's an array, so I'm going to use subscripting. And I'm going to say index path dot row. And the row is simply which row is currently being displayed. And so if it's the 0th row, I will do I'll find the 0th index of this array and print whatever is in there. It should be cell 0. If it's the first, the next row will be cell 1. So this is just saying which member of the sample data array should I show? Well, whichever one equals the row I'm currently at. So let's go ahead and run this to see what this looks like. Hopefully I'll have some data that appear in my cells. Okay, I've shrunk this down so you can see it a little bit better. But notice that when I drag, I'm getting all the different cells. So just to demonstrate the idea of the reuse identifier, let's go ahead and add a breakpoint to the cell for row at index path function. So I'm going to just put a breakpoint in here. I'm going to edit that breakpoint. I'm going to make sure I automatically continue. And then I'm going to log a message. Obtaining reusable cell. And then index path dot row. Okay, let's go ahead and run this now with that breakpoint in there. Move this over a little bit. Let me show the console. Now notice when I show up, it's obtaining the next cell. And you can see that as I scroll, it's just getting the next cell in place and adding it. When I go the other way, it obtains the next cell. Whoops, don't want to do the notifications. And you can see it only obtains the cells as they're needed. So these are the ones that are currently in memory. When it needs a new one, it just configures the next cell in line. Well, so now we've got some data in our cell. So we need to find some way that we can model an actual journal entry. And we'll do that in the next lesson.